So if you're looking for like the things on the AI test, that is the wrong way to do this. You have to become a continual AI generalist learner. That's what now that's hard, but I think to your point about openness and, how can we help people become a different kind of learner? I think that is our task in Gesture, I think. Not teach them some stuff, but help them be a learner for all kinds of stuff. Not almost certainly using AI as a way to accelerate your learning.
Welcome back to Unhireable, your podcast for an honest take on early career. I'm Kiera, and I'm here with Maile, Kevin, Liz, and Matt. On our last episode, we talked a lot about AI and why Gesture is shifting our focus to AI, but it's clear that the discourse around AI in early career is only growing. There's a lot of fear around AI taking away jobs, especially entry-level jobs, and how it might be affecting early career moving forward. So I guess I'll throw it back to you guys. How is Gesture approaching this issue and those types of questions?
Yeah. Panic. No.
Head in sand.
Complete restructuring.
Buying lottery tickets.
We were just talking about how it seems like it's been
years
since we last had a conversation about this, at least on the podcast, but it's really not been very long at all. And I think that AI has sort of warped sense of time. It's changing so quickly, and everything. There's an urgency, I think, to answer your question, Kiera. I feel like we've taken on an added urgency around not just and not in a simple way, doing AI, but understanding how it is relevant to our students as they enter the job market when they graduate. And we've talked about how that sort of warping of time seems particularly strange when working with freshmen. 4 years seems like unimaginable and difficult to even kind of picture what world they would enter into. And so at one level that's a little paralyzing, but I think but the urgency to me just brings pressure to really double down on making sure we're doing everything we can to push them to grow as much as they can in this area.
Well, and Kiera, to your question, like, what are we doing? I think a lot of times we have conversations amongst ourselves, and they can be a little stifling. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? There's just, it feels insurmountable at times because the rate of change is happening so quickly, and it feels like if you're not running to catch up, you're falling that much farther behind. We talk about that quite a bit. But I think one of the things that we're doing right now is not just thinking about it or enacting different things with our students, but also gathering different voices, right? So thinking about what is the lived experience in that early career space, not just from the student side or a career center side or something like that, sort of a campus vision, but what is it from the employers? What is it from recruiters? What is it from folks in early career? And we're both connecting with those entities formally and informally. We're going to have some of them on the podcast, which is going to be awesome. But even the stuff that we're hearing just anecdotally or from folks off the record, things are fundamentally shifting. And I think where we live here in Seattle, the University of Washington, we are particularly acutely aware of it right now because of some changes with big employers around us. So, yeah, it feels like it's not just, coming up the driveway. It's at the door. It's rung the doorbell a couple of times. And it's here. We need to talk.
I think it's also just shocking how if you look outside and you start locking into trends in AI and trends in work, it feels like it's everywhere but here. And so it feels like, like that desire to try to catch up and get people caught up, however they feel about AI, it's just like it's everywhere out there. And so how do we bring some of that here and make it relevant to students who are just getting started so that they can have some sort of chance when they leave to.
Well, and I think it's not all doom and gloom. I think there is some hope for optimism, but that hope only comes from action, right? Like doing something different, changing what your trajectory is now. There's also, for those of you who are interested, just a gazillion articles out there talking about this. I mean, I feel like you could do a search for AI career articles every day and find a few new things showing up because it's just so prevalent right now. But there are some trends. There are some themes that we're starting to hear there. Some things that I think, again, are pushing us to action, pushing us to reimagining what it is to work with students and what we ask of them to do. In fact, again, we talk about time being very odd in this space, but a while ago, we were thinking about welcoming last year's incoming first-year students, who we worked with extensively. We're in that same place again, getting ready, welcoming a new year, a new class to come in. What we're asking and thinking about how we can better prepare them has changed so much in just 1 year. So again, to this point, that the rate of change is, on top of us and really asking us to be nimble. That's only been exacerbated over these last few months. But there are some trends, right?
Yep.
So we should talk about some of those.
Yeah.
Because I think those are guiding what those conversations are going to be with the outside world and the lived experience. So kind of thinking where we're coming from in that. So we've got a bunch of them, thanks to Kiera and Maile and all the folks who make us sound smart. But
Yeah,
where should we start?
We should talk about them quickly before they become
I know, before they change again. All right. So today,
Yeah.
timestamp.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big one is that a lot of entry-level jobs are going away. And it's not just because of automation. It's because people are creating efficiencies and restructuring the existing roles that they have to try to get people onboarded with as little training as possible, because that's becoming more and more possible and easier day by day. So like what it means to be entry level is different than what it was a year ago.
Totally.
So that's a big one.
Well, and that same thing, like, what is entry level? Because there's this concept that what used to be entry level has been leapfrogged into a higher expectation, right? That the experiences that you bring from your college days are actually now a stand-in for what used to be on-the-job training. And I understand where that's coming from and why employers are doing that, because they can, right? If they're finding successful candidates and finding that the work that used to be part of that entry-level training can be replaced by AI, of course that means how students come in is going to look different than it did even a year ago.
Yeah, I know there's some complexity in this space about which kinds of jobs would be most affected by AI. I think there's at least quite a lot of people who think that early career and entry-level white-collar jobs are particularly vulnerable. And then I think, we've seen some other people talk about how that applies kind of across the spectrum, even into mid-career or late career. So kind of depending on the work you do. What I find interesting is that even if you look at mid-career, sort of where AI would threaten mid-career, let's say in fields like consulting or law or really information-driven fields, and then you look back at entry-level white-collar jobs, what is common to both of those is that that's the core of what college presumes to prepare you for. So there's a vulnerability to the value of the college degree, both in entry-level and in mid-career, kind of across the career spectrum, that really has, part of it is an experience thing, and part of it is what kind of work do you do? And the more you do work that is connected or overlapping with current AI capabilities, the more, let's just say the more you'd want to adapt individually. I know there's also been, and we've talked about this, I think, a change in the way corporate, and particularly corporate, but probably business leaders, meaning employer leaders in general, talk about the impacts of AI. Because I feel like early on there was a pretty concerted effort to say that AI was not going to directly take away people's jobs. It was going to, increase everyone's capability to do more work, which
Enhance us.
Yeah. Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is true. It's certainly that's the approach we've tried to take. Now, of course, if you have more enhanced employees, maybe you just are doing the same work, you don't need as many of them. So organizations and companies that can expand and grow into new work could use the same or more people. But I think the tide has definitely shifted, and people being more comfortable saying, there are jobs that are going to be eliminated, at least in the short run, significant numbers of jobs, and they're not making that up because we've seen thousands of layoffs recently across domains, across industries, in areas that seemed like they were very secure before, in other areas that have, always been sort of vulnerable. So kind of across the board, like you said, I think that we can talk about lots of strategies, and this is the idea of talking to employers. Find out first of all, find out what's actually going on, find out what the state of knowledge is there, what the applications are, what it means to know AI in an early career job. What are you actually doing with it? How do you show that you know that so that someone would know? I think we've started to have some conversations, and I think it's going to be great over the next number of episodes to bring in guests kind of across the spectrum to find out what's really happening. Yeah, I also think that, we could interview a bunch of people and then have those episodes span several months. And then, by the time we get to the last one, some of the stuff we talked about the first time are already starting to evolve in important ways, not necessarily become obsolete, but it's just not, you can't really overstate how fast things are changing and how difficult that is for people to get their heads around. I think so. I think the other thing that we're working on in Gesture is not only trying to understand, like we've been talking about, what does the market look like when they graduate, but how do people learn this? Because I think it's become clear to me that learning AI is not like learning other stuff. And if you learn AI the same way you do other tools, then you can pick up some sort of procedural knowledge, but that is still using it as a tool to do things the way you're doing before. And what I think we're seeing across domains in business and even in research is that new kinds of work are emerging. That's like doing different stuff different ways with AI, and that's a much harder thing to learn. It requires a different kind of rewiring of who you are and what your work is and what your relationship to that work is and how that defines who you are and your own trajectory. So that's a much harder thing than just learn a new tool. And so in higher ed, for example, I think most of the applications of AI to this point, well, there's a lot of concern about cheating and all that. So there's some applications trying to stop cheating. That's stupid. But there is a lot of work into how we can use AI to help students do school better. And not much at all. I think the larger question is, what parts of school do we need to do? Or what is school supposed to be? Mm-hmm. And that I don't see much of at all. And, this goes to your point about, adaptability and how quickly we can change. And so that's the other sense of urgency, I feel, not just in preparing our students, but in vulnerability of the entire apparatus of higher ed in particular, more so I think than K-12, but which has problems too. But I think for higher ed in particular. So I think that's the other thing that I look forward to talking to employers and people out there about, like, what, not only how AI is changing that landscape, but what does that mean for your demand for college graduates and what you need from them, how many you need, how you're going to find the people to do this work. These are much more existential questions than I think we want to admit. Mm-hmm. Well, we admit it, but I don't want to admit it either. But
there's never been something like this where you've never got it. Like, every day you log on, the tool that maybe couldn't do something the day before could maybe now do it, and so there's like nothing really to compare that to. And I feel like I struggle with that, and I can only imagine that students will struggle with that. And employers are probably, obviously struggling to keep up with it, but that it's such a rare, unique thing to be in this space of, like, it's constantly changing, so you never master it. Nobody's mastered it. But it's, like, ripe with opportunity for people to, like, figure it out, figure out how to keep changing with it.
I think that's a really important point, because we often talk in higher ed about lifelong learning, and everyone knows that, you just when you graduate from school, whatever level you graduate, you're going to learn more stuff. But we talk about it as if that's like an easy thing. Like everyone continues to, or maybe take a class or you read a book or whatever.
It's like one kind of learning.
It's one kind, exactly. I think
Yeah.
what you're talking about is not what we usually mean by lifelong learning. The kind of learning that you're talking about, very few people do that at all. And because we have like our regular job to do. Like that, and so we're talking about a kind of learning that is kind of a job unto itself. And that's hard if you have another job. If you don't have a job and you're looking for a job, then you really have no excuse. That should be your job because that's what everyone else is doing.
So like shifting, I don't know. I've thought about this. I'm right-handed. What if someone said like, you now need to be left-handed?
Right, or left-footed.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like a fundamental shift in that direction. I think the other thing that scares me is I was on LinkedIn very recently and someone had posted, and now someone I think is like a charlatan. I won't name them, but it's so easy to learn AI, and it gave these links to like this would be your fundamental, foundational ways to learn to be AI literate, and it gave links to again reputable places, Stanford, Coursera type things online, but they were dated like 18 months ago, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I immediately do not trust you because also that term AI literacy is completely loaded, right? And I think there are a lot of people who are struggling or trying to get their heads around what makes me AI literate, if that's going to be a requirement for jobs or the future. And again, for a place that touts our ability to teach and research, I don't think we're teaching or researching what it means to be AI literate to the capacity that we should be right now.
Well, and I guess I'm just like to play devil's advocate for those students out there that are in school that are like, well, I don't plan to do anything around technology. Like, what do we say to them? Because I'm sure there's people that are like, well, I'm never going to use AI. But it is touching everyone. It's going to touch everyone's work, right?
I think that's a great question, and you alluded to this earlier, Matt. I think there's a lot of strategies people could use and how they learn it and what they use it for. You can learn it by starting to do it in your personal life, or you could do it with some part of your work. Don't do it in class if your teacher says you shouldn't. But beyond that's actually not the biggest part of our learning in life anyway. So there's plenty of places to apply it. I think the only bad strategy right now is to do nothing.
Yep.
That is the guaranteed worst strategy to me. Because even if it isn't applicable to whatever you end up doing, well, first of all, who knows what everyone is going to actually do, regardless of what the change. And then who knows what's going to happen to technology. Like you said, it will be there in some form. I think having strong beliefs about AI without actually understanding and using it, that seems to me the only dumb position.
Yeah.
So there's lots of critiques, there's lots of concerns, there's lots of things to worry about, to challenge. But I don't see how you do those without understanding the thing that you're trying to challenge. And reading one article that justifies your own position and your own distrust, and then using that to not do it. Okay, I mean, make your choices. But
I love that for you.
I love that. Yes.
But that's the antithesis.
That's just one less person you have to compete for a job for. So that's great.
Yeah, that's the antithesis of coming to college.
It is. And so there's more than a little irony there. Now, in defense of college, we need to it's a fundamental rethinking of what we're trying to teach people and how to assess those things. But we do need to move, maybe a billion or 2 billion% faster on that than we are. But it's hard. I'm not going to pretend like that's easy. But I think that's why for this generation, meaning people who are in school in this transition to a more AI world, and who knows how long that'll be. That might be a while, or it might be just a few years. But in that transition, I don't think you'll be able to rely on institutions. You won't be able to rely on other people to teach you everything you need about AI.
Yeah.
Because the institutions are going to have to figure it out themselves in that transition period.
Nobody's keeping up.
Nobody's keeping
Yeah.
up. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody knows what the hell's going on. That is the truth. What the is happening? That is the basic.
Well, the other hard thing that I think for those of us in higher ed, and oh my gosh, I feel like the conversation I have with faculty has totally changed in tenor. That the urgency that we at Gesture feel is not being felt amongst certain faculty here at the university. But in the articles and all the discourse talking about how often and the change in the discourse around all of this, I feel like the questioning about the relevance of higher ed has also ratcheted
Yes.
up in a way that we were not seeing even just a few months ago.
Externally.
Yeah, externally.
Yeah.
Like the number of people who are saying, is higher ed really the place where this problem gets solved? Because for people who like to argue, especially people on campuses, higher ed's where tough problems were always tackled, right? Where societal, scientific, whatever they were, this is where you'd go to solve really complicated problems. I think, Kevin, to your point, people are now saying, is that the only way that we solve this problem? Is that the only way that we teach this tool? Is that the only place that Matt learns to be left-handed or left-footed instead of right-handed? I'm not sure. That's scary, you know?
It's like a complete shift.
Yeah.
And change is hard.
Totally. But I mean, on the optimistic side, higher ed and universities are still places where lots and lots and lots of really, really smart people happen to all be together all at the same time. Maybe we should leverage that. Let's think about that. But it's a different way of thinking, and it's an openness. I think that's one thing that we've been having a more sort of frank discussion about is how do you start assessing things like openness? What does that look like? And is that openness to change and openness to learning and adaptability and malleability to what you think things are, is that something that we need to drill down on and start honing?
Well, and self-motivation, because this requires like discipline to take this on top of everything else that you're doing, right? To integrate it.
Yeah, I think that's a scary part of this transition is that it's reasonable in sort of normal times. So like before this period, I guess, maybe it wasn't even reasonable then, but it seems reasonable at some level for students to expect, the school system from K-12 to college to sort of tell them what they need to learn in order to get to wherever they want to go. And AI is one of a few factors that for higher ed have jumbled that, where higher ed is still figuring out what those things are right now. So again, for this generation, we're not fully able to help them. We can't do that for them. They're going to have to do some of that on their own, and which brings into question one element of the value proposition of college. Like if I'm going to have to do some of that on my own, why am I paying you? But that I think, to your point, Liz, people who are relying on school for motivation, that is an unfortunate time to be in this cohort. I think those people are going to be left behind. So I guess what I would say is, if you've always relied on school to be the motivation to learn, and you're going to have to change that, or everyone is going to leave you behind right now. And that might not be true 5 or 10 years from now if school sort of gets it together in a way to figure out how people learn that. But right now, school's figuring out itself. Everyone's on their own. Schools are on their own. Individuals are on their own. Business, like everybody's on their own right now. And so self-motivation, whether or not we can teach that, or how that, this is something we're digging into, but the people who are self-starters and self-directed and those are the people who are going to do best in this basically chaotic period. And everyone else needs to find a little bit of that in whatever area of their life they can, or if it matters to them. We just can't rely on other people, I think. That's what I'm excited about this next sort of phase of the podcast, but also of our work, right? We know on one hand, I think this gives us a much more explicit focus on what is the outside world going to need from us, from our graduates. So let's try our best to reverse engineer that for these students over the next several years. So a very external focus, not particular companies or particular jobs, not even just work, but life in general. Like what does the world after college need from college graduates? And then secondly, to think about AI more as a particular kind, this, to our discussion, a particular kind of learning problem. It's not just a class. It's not just a book you read or a website you go to, like you were saying, or it's not just prompt engineering or a particular set of techniques. It is, because those will all be obsolete within a few months. And So if you're looking for like the things on the AI test, that is the wrong way to do this. You have to become a continual AI generalist learner. Now that's hard, but I think to your point about openness and, how can we help people become a different kind of learner? I think that is our task in Gesture, I think. Not teach them some stuff, but help them be a learner for all kinds of stuff. Not almost certainly using AI as a way to accelerate your learning, which I think everyone would agree is possible, or well, most people. So knowing what the outside world wants and then changing from a learn stuff to a learn how to learn focus, those two things combined are what we will be working on this year and talking to people from the outside about.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be great. Yeah.
As we say, what to do wrong.
Where do we buy lottery tickets? So, Kevin, you just talked about learning experiences, all these different things. Sort of on the side of that, and I think, you just asked this question about what employers need from us. Historically, we've often had internships as the stand-in for that internships were the applied learning space that undergraduates would use to make sure they were ready for employment. But what does that mean for internships and that space moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's almost paradoxical in some ways. I think there's a degree to which it's clear internships will matter more because because we hear that from employers, but we need non-school and also probably project or domain-specific evidence. So especially in AI. I mean, I think in brief conversations we've started to hear this, and I think this will be something I'm interested to dig in with some of our guests down the line. But what is it that you would do at an internship? What kind of internship? Which internship? What happens? How do you tell that story? I think most of the discussion we hear around internships, I think, is not that useful. It's just some sort of bland. Everyone needs an internship, and I'm sure. But that doesn't tell you what a good one from a bad one is. Should you have 10? Should you have one that you were for 2 years or two that you did 1 year? Are you just trying to get lines on your resume? I mean, that's better than nothing. That seems to be the general kind of consensus. Internships give you real-world experience. That means nothing, to say it that way, because there's lots of crappy real-world experience. And there's also even real-world applications that could give you experience that you can tell a story related to a real-world thing, let's say in research or something like that. So I think we need to be clear about what exactly we are trying to do in an internship. And so I think for me, it is generate a story that is relevant to your professional goals. So in the case of AI, I think even our initial conversations, because it's something we've asked and we'll continue to ask, how do you, from an employer perspective, what are you looking for? Just somebody who says, I know how to use AI. I view chat. No, how do you know whether they know enough? How do you know whether they know which tools? How do you know whether they're good at it, essentially, or they're just making it up? And the general answer so far seems to be, because employers are also still figuring it out, openness and some general aptitude, right? So there's an attitude. That's something we'll work on. But a project. I think it's at the end of the day, I think it's a project story. Here is something I did with AI. Here's a problem that I solved. Here's how I solved it. And the problem shows the application part and speaks to the value of an internship. It's not a school problem or a class problem, but something out there in the world that would be relevant to whatever employer you're talking to, or community or whatever. And then the AI part or the skill part comes in the how I did it. And I think that is how you will be able to demonstrate, I understand AI, this particular tool or this particular application or use case or tactic or whatever in the story that you tell about what you did with it. So I don't think it'll be enough to say, yes, I use ChatGPT all the time, or I use LLMs, or I did whatever, or I made an agent or whatever. To do what?
Yeah.
What'd you do with it? How'd you do it? How long did it take? What tool did you use? All versions, going back to mission, and I think this is something that does give me confidence, again, on some good news, is that all of our work before AI was built around mission, challenge, and story as the things we heard from employers that matter in early career. And nothing that I have heard changes that at all. And in fact, that person, I think, this is, I don't have all the data to back this up, I think, but the hypothesis is that the candidate who is strong on mission, challenge, and story is the one who is good at AI. Because I think those are the things correlated with AI learning. Know what problem you're trying to solve. Know who the audience is. Be able to, project forward to the success story that tells the how you did it. And so it's not just randomly using AI tools. It's using the tools that matter for that problem. So I think that's why for us, our alignment with it's very easy to adopt AI as a central part of our work because I think AI success is very strongly correlated with mission, challenge, and story. So if you can't get a problem-solving story out of an internship, then I think that's not a good internship.
Well, and even I think what's even more exciting is now, instead of having to, like we've always said, try to create value, like go into a place and try to create value and understand. And now you have like rapidly changing and improving tools that continue to expand and grow and grow and grow to help you figure out and create value for people without having to task your actual employer, which has never been a thing, right? It used to be that you'd have to kind of go in, suss it out, like ask questions, but don't like over ask and try to not be a burden for your employer as an intern. But now it's like you have this person that's like this, it's almost like a superhero that's on your team that can help you figure out value and understand a company or an organization without having to ask anyone about it. And so the people who like turn that knob up and like dig in and start using those tools, they're going to stand out so quickly. Even just it's everything. It's also just working on your resume, working on your story, working on your cover letter, practicing interviews. Like it's all there for you now. You don't have to ask anybody to help you with that.
Right.
We've never really had that comprehensively.
No.
But also it'll be so apparent the people that don't use that resource.
Well, and I think we've been in this space for a while now where a lot of people refer to undergrads as their digital natives, right? That they grew up in a digital age. And so ergo, they have all the digital competencies that they need.
They're more experienced. Yeah.
I don't buy that. I never did buy that. Just because you grew up in a digital age, does that make you adept or skillful with digital tools or in a digital world? No, you had to practice at some point. You had to grow. You had to challenge. Again, going back to, mission, story, challenge, the place where we like to task people to think about growth. I think the same thing is true. I think there's some people who are just writing off, well, undergrads know exactly what AI is. They grew up with it. It came out when they were still in junior high or elementary school or something to that. So ergo, they've got it.
They have enough.
They have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
It's so naive. And I think I'm hearing certain groups, especially faculty, who will then say, they already have it solved. I don't need to worry about it. That's not my problem because they were digital natives. Now they're AI natives. I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
No, and I think now I'm just going on memory, but when I've seen charts tracking AI usage by age, and the youngest group does use AI the most, but not by much. It's a much flatter distribution than the story that you're talking. This is to your point that our usual technology story is young people understand technology, old people don't, and which is true in some technologies. This one seems to be much flatter, and I think that's to be expected because it came out new for everybody at the same time, and so younger people on average may be slightly better than that, but not so much that you can rely on being of a generation as a marker for AI competence. That is definitely not true. And even if it is relatively true to some small degree, and I think that's good news for old people like us. Like we can
There's hope.
There's hope. Finally. No, it really is. And actually that applies across socioeconomic status as well, and it applies globally. So access to the technology is not just in industrialized countries as, let's say internet access was before broadband or having a computer. A lot of stuff is on your phone, and billions of people have a phone. So there is a potential democratization that I think is legitimate, that many more people, and because everyone was starting at zero, then it really did kind of come as close as possible to leveling the playing field. Still not level, but I mean, relatively speaking. So I'm not trying to make the argument that everything's fair and just now, but what I'm saying is, for our students, they have to understand part of their advantage, a huge part of their advantage was the privilege they had by coming to an elite university. That is being eroded. And there are now potentially billions, certainly millions of people who can compete with them now that we're not really competing with, previous generations.
Right.
The unemployment rate for early career candidates is higher than it has been in a long time for that age group. So there are fewer jobs, or at least there's more unemployment for that age. But there's also more people who are capable of doing those jobs, independent of AI. Now there's just more people. So that's a tough market to be in. And to your point, you have to actively work to differentiate yourself. And it's not. I think people are also waiting around for the clear path of what they need to do. Right. Do this, and you will succeed. There is no path like that. You just better try a lot of stuff and make a lot of effort, and you will be better off. You will certainly be better off than if you didn't make that effort. Mm-hmm. That's the criteria, not whether you would be compared to other people.
Well, and anyone who's pitching an easy path to, like as you said earlier,
right.
to master this or get that certificate so that you're AI literate and you can put it on your LinkedIn, it's not enough, and it stopped being relevant the moment that it got published because the tools had changed by then. I think the other thing is this is going to touch every field.
Yeah.
So freshmen come in and they have this idea of I'm going to study this major because it's related to this thing that I want to do, and this will touch everything. So there's no path that is going to remain the same with this happening, right? So, it's don't stick your head down in the sand.
No.
Just lean in. No one's going to train you. So start training yourself. Start exploring.
We were having this conversation about electricians, and I think there's a lot of I see a lot of references now, and I just heard people talking about this yesterday about at least the trades are sort of the safer place, and certainly in terms of what AI does now, AI does not literally fix your plumbing, but you had an example, right?
I had a circuit blow at my house, and I'm doing two things at once. I'm calling electricians, waiting for a call back, and I'm also talking to AI. Well, by the time the first electrician called me back, AI had solved my problem. It questioned what was going on, what my problem was, where it started from. It was a GFCI circuit. I'm not an electrician, but I fixed my
ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT fixed my problem. I mean, I also just heard someone talking about how they filmed themselves in their golf swing the other day, and were we already talking about this?
Personalized coaching?
Yeah. So, and he's in his 90s. Yeah. And he's he filmed himself swinging at a driving range, put it into AI, ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave him all these golf pointers, and he said his golf game is markedly improved because of that. I mean, again, sort of this flatness and the ubiquitousness of access to it when, non-electricians no longer paid the $500 call to get my switches looked at or whatever.
No, totally. I mean, I think that's people in their head. They have, if you need an electrician to fix something, AI can't do that. At this point, that's true, although at some point there might be robots for that. But what percentage of the income of an electrician or an electrical company comes from making a call where it was just to fix something that somebody could have fixed on their own?
Yeah.
Because if that goes away, that affects that market, and you just don't need as many electricians. So I think the idea that this is exactly to your point, that there are trades-based fields that are immune, that is naive. That's delusional. That's Delulu. Isn't that what it is? I'm pretty sure
that's
it's
real.
Delulu.
That's a thing.
I think we're not thinking, broadly enough about the ways that, certainly coaching, is an area that is identified. I've done that for myself on other things as well. And, there's some threshold at which you would still want to talk to a human. But but if you cut off 50% of that or 75% of that, that still cuts 50% or 75% out of the income of that person that you're going to call for help.
Correct.
And so you can't say that that's no impact on that field. So in prevention and self-diagnosis, and there's so many ways that could, and there's areas like in healthcare where if it worked, we would all benefit from being able to have advances there. But I think that goes to that simplistic, very immediate, what I do right now, can AI do that? And that's wrong both in the sense that AI is going to be able to do more in the future. We're looking at the crappy version of it now. And who says that's the only stuff that you have to do?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I was trying to find a good news. Well, so go to college because even the plumbers are going to be, no. But I think it is fair to say that the most immediate application of AI is to knowledge or information-based work, which is, our primary value creation in college. Hard to put a good spin on that.
Well, we're at a unique time though, where there's this chance to be a part of kind of figuring it out and uncovering things.
Right.
And it's taking a claim in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shaping it.
So I think you guys gave a lot of good context for why we're going into these interviews and what the world's looking like right now with early career. What are the types of insights and questions you're hoping to ask the employers that we talk with?
Part of it is just validating what our hypotheses are. Like we've talked to employers in the past primarily about mission and challenge and story, and not explicitly about AI as much. So I think finding out just directly from people who are doing that work what the impacts of AI are in early career, both in the hiring cycle and in the actual work, and in that sense, that probably could go beyond early career, but how AI is changing whatever work they do in their field. But I think that is, like we said, also just a return to, in the background, does mission still matter? Does challenge and does story still matter? How does it matter? How have those things changed? Do we need to change our approach? The informal conversations we've had indicate the opposite, that it's more important than ever. But I think I'd like to dig into that a little bit more, because I think AI in particular is a field we need to just get past cliches and platitudes to some details, even though they're going to differ by field and industry. But tell me more about what's really going on in that case. What are you actually using it for? What platform do you use? What is okay? What is not okay? What is the CEO telling the people at the company? Are people in the company actually using it, or just have that available and are making airline reservations or something with it? So, I think kind of a reality check.
I'm excited to ask, how has interviewing changed? What qualities make candidates stand out, and also what kinds of experiences or experience matters? Because I think that's the thing that's really hard to wrap your brain around. It's if you're looking for internships, what's the right kind of internship, or is it just how you do the internship, which is probably often always been the case. But now, that back to your question of how do you prove that you know AI? I bet different employers have a different response to that, and it'll just be interesting to kind of start to notice or see if there are trends.
Probably dovetailing on both those things, I'd be curious to know what things we do or experiences that students have during the undergraduate time still have value and are important for employability, and which ones, there might be some, I don't know, that we've invested a lot of time and energy hyping up as really, really critical aspects of earning a bachelor's degree that might not land the same way based off of trends in employment or shifts in the workforce. I'd be really curious to know, are there some things that we've done well that we should keep doing? Are there things that we should modify? And the other part that I'm just most excited about is we can make 100 million hours of us talking about this as soon as we start getting voices from, quote unquote, the real world, the outside world. It just lends so much more weight to the import of it for us all, especially students. I mean, I've been working with students for a really long time, and I think as soon as you start hearing someone who has the ability to pay you, who has the ability to hire and or fire you, or look at your resume and pass it on versus passing it over. Those people and their opinions and their anecdotes and all those things just have more weight to this discourse. So I'm really excited to have those voices join us moving forward.
Want to hear more from Gesture? Check out the rest of the Unhireable podcast on YouTube and Spotify. For even more content, follow us on TikTok and Instagram at gesture_UW.